Oh shit. Here we go again. Welcome back to the Den of Nerds. I am Josh. We have show for you today, and I think it's going to be a good one. I want to talk a little bit more, just a little bit more, about Daredevil Born Again. Watched it again last night, which honestly, can't remember the last time I wanted to watch a Disney Plus show episode again within the first couple of days. Probably Ahsoka. Probably, like episode 5, episode 6 of Ahsoka, which were absolute fire. Definitely wanted to watch those again. So that's good. I had some more thoughts about Daredevil Born Again, so I want to share those with you today. Also, massive story about Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom. The Russo brothers are, of course, out there talking about Electric State. They're doing some press, and they're about to go make Avengers Doomsday and then Avengers Secret Wars. They're doing like the craziest thing ever. And they spoke a little bit to where Robert Downey Jr. is at in his process. And the big headline that came out of that, the thing that a lot of people are focusing on, is that he's writing the backstory for Doctor Doom. And I want to explain what I think is going on and get into that, because that is a very cool detail. I think it's a detail that some people are confused about, potentially, but it's a really cool detail. So we're going to go over that today. That's fascinating stuff. And then we're going to wrap up with some Star Wars news. I know, Josh, you said you're not going to talk about Star Wars anymore. Josh, you said you hate Star Wars, and it's all true. But I'm backtracking a little bit. We'll talk just a little bit about it. I want to address the Andor stuff. I know people are excited about Andor, so I want to talk about it. And I want to talk about my plans when it comes to Andor. I also wanted to briefly touch on Star Wars Celebration. That is coming out in just a couple of months. Is that next month? Star Wars Celebration? My goodness. We have updates about what panels are announced officially for that convention, and we have some word from insiders as far as what kind of a deal that's going to be. Some people saying a lot of trailers, super big deal. Will they officially announce Kathleen Kennedy's retirement? Kind of seems unlikely to me at this point, but we'll get into that. And then we have comments from Jon Favreau about the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, and also Mandalorian Season 4, which is apparently also still a thing, which is scrambling my eggs, frankly. So we'll get into that, and I want to touch on that. So, a couple of cool stories today. Keep on nerd-venging out there in the free world. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining. If you're joining us live, either on the YouTube channel or the Twitch channel, thank you so much. Smash a like or do whatever you do on Twitch. Appreciate it. Thank you. And, of course, if you're listening on the podcast feed, we appreciate you as well. As far as show notes are concerned, nothing crazy. I think tomorrow night at 7:30, we are doing a Diamond Lounge. That's via the Discord. If you're a member and you've been a member for 6 months or more, you will find all the information on the Discord. Hit a mod up. So we'll do one of those tomorrow evening. That should be pretty cool, pretty wild. Other than that, I anticipate a regular show tomorrow. I am cooking a lot of really crazy videos right now. Yesterday, Alex Perez of the Cosmic Circus dropped a Q&A article on their website and sort of clarified some stuff about the leaked concept art and potentially spoiled some big things that are coming in Doomsday and Secret Wars. I just got done recording a big video about that before I got on stream with you today. That should drop later today as a video. It's being edited right now, and that's crazy. I have a big X-Men video. I have other big Secret Wars videos. I was actually cooking some really crazy videos even before that concept leak came out, so I've had to kind of adjust the release schedule. But trust me, there's a lot of nerdy content coming your way and a lot of stuff that I'm really interested in when it comes to all that sort of stuff. So look forward to that. That's about all I have for you as far as show notes. Let's begin. Let's get into this information here, man. And again, I want to start with Daredevil Born Again. I don't think I was too harsh on the show, but I did sit down and watch the show again last night. Okay, and number one, I wanted to watch it with Elisa, so we watched that together. But also, I was sort of looking to see, how does this hit me the second time? Do I actually think it's good? Are some of the holes bad? Is it more distracting? It's always interesting to watch something like that for a second time. And I just got to tell you, I was sucked in. I think that first episode is phenomenal of Daredevil Born Again. And the action sequence and everything that happens at the beginning of the show is pretty brilliant. But then even the year gap and a lot of the building they do with the new crew and everything, the way that revolves around Fisk is really interesting. And ultimately, the conversation between Matt and Fisk at the end of episode 1, watching that again was incredible. Those guys are so dialed in that scene. And there's so much subtext to what's going on in that scene. And I always like to bring this point up because I think it's one of the things that's really missing from phase 4 and 5 of the MCU in general is subtext. This might seem like a weird concept, but I think one of the reasons that a lot of the subtext gets taken out of phase 4 and phase 5 is because there were too many moving parts and they had to cut a lot of stuff out and they had to add a lot of exposition to like explain some of the new content. And so the harder it was to execute on their exact plan and the less simple the character motivations in the world was, the harder it was to pull out subtext from the actors in the particular scenes. The beauty of having these characters in Wilson Fisk and in Matt Murdock and their history and their relationship and also these incredible actors, the beauty is we can sit back and have an incredible amount of subtext in a conversation, which I think is some of the juiciest, best parts of dialogue. You know, I, like many of you, kind of grew up on the classic Quentin Tarantino movies. And one of the things that Tarantino is a master of is dialogue. And you've never quite been so fascinated and on the edge of your seat as you are when you witness an incredible Tarantino-esque dialogue sequence. And those scenes have an awesome way of building tension and subtext. You know, if you think about the beginning scene in Inglourious Bastards and that dialogue sequence between the Nazi dude and the farmer guy, right, about like the hiding and everything, it is completely built off subtext, meaning we're not shown exactly what's happening right away, but the subtext is that they are hiding people and that this guy knows about it, and that tension drives the entire scene. It's brilliant. So you get in that scene with Matt and with Wilson Fisk, you get truly phenomenal work, man. Like, it was a pleasure to watch those two dudes do that scene. And I think the thing that's really interesting about it is it bedrocks the entire season in this idea of these two men wanting to defy their nature. You know, they're trying to rise above their nature. That's something that Fisk says to him at the very end of that conversation. I love a man who rises above his nature. Good luck with that, Murdoch. And it's this like cold ass sort of acknowledgement, sort of tip of the hat that they're both actually doing that. They both have this nature. And the subtext of that conversation, just to totally spell it out there for you, the subtext of that conversation is that they both know they're not going to overcome their nature. It's almost like this dance, like circling around this thing that they both kind of know but don't want to acknowledge. And it's very powerful. It's a palpably enjoyable scene. So I watched it again, and I loved it, man. I think it's so strong, and you know, I think it's a really, really good start. Now here's a potential issue here, and something else I wanted to bring up. The more I thought about it, the more I thought, you know, a lot of the Marvel Disney Plus shows actually do start rather strong. And I wonder, I can't do anything about Twitch, guys. Sorry. Just can't do anything about it. If somebody gets Elise's attention, she can fix it. I can't fix it. So when I think back to a lot of the other Marvel shows, right, I think that they actually mostly start really strong. WandaVision has a really strong opening. Even Falcon and the Winter Soldier has a really strong first episode. You think back to that first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, yo, it is strong. Very strong. Even Moon Knight. Moon Knight has an incredible first episode. I thought Hawkeye's beginning was pretty strong. She-Hulk has a pretty whack first episode, mostly because they just put it right on Front Street, and it's terrible. But a lot of the other shows start incredibly strong. In fact, I think, and I was sort of thinking about this, if we went back and we just watched the first episode of most of the Disney Plus shows, I bet we would be like, wow, this is all pretty good. The problem with the Disney Plus shows, for the most part, is not how they start. It's how they move the narrative forward and how they finish. They really go off the rails because this was a movie studio without showrunners trying to sort of make really long-form movies, and there would be episodes that felt like a weird in-between act sort of an episode that on its own was not really enjoyable, right? And I think they also just were trying to do too much. So the actual beginnings of these shows and some of the things that you would expect to be paid off as the story would continue, they don't feel fulfilling. So Daredevil Born Again is off to this incredible start, but it's going to have to prove that it can actually progress this story, that it can follow through on a lot of the promises that it sets up. And if the payoffs to the setup and the sort of conversation that is the show continues to operate at this level and really do a good job closing it out, this might be one of the best shows they've ever made. I potentially see, especially after I watch the episodes again, I can really see that there's a foundation for things that are going to unravel. It's essentially all about Fisk and Matt trying to defy their nature, but ultimately being brought back to it, like the scorpion and the frog, but they're both the scorpion. You know what I mean? And I love that. I think that's really good, and it could feel fulfilled as we go through this 9-episode season and we get into season 2, right? So I don't know. I guess I've slightly adjusted my feelings about Daredevil upon watching it again. And the other thing I'll say, and I was talking to some people on the Discord about this earlier today. I think there's, it's totally fair to say, and it's true, that the show is not operating at the level of the Netflix show. It's not hitting the heights of some of the things that original show did. That's all fair, and I've made that point as well. But I also think it's important to mention that this show is really good, and I've come to sort of treat it as a new comic book run of Daredevil. In comics, you'll have a creative team that's put on a book, and it's actually a big deal. Like, who is the creative team? What tone, what ideas are they going to bring to it? So we just got a new creative team announced for Batman. I'm actually not super familiar with the artist, but I know that Matt Fraction is the writer, and that's wild. Like, Matt Fraction has certain sensibilities and has done certain books in the past, and it's a weird fit for Batman, but it gets you thinking. It's kind of interesting, right? So in comics, you always have new interpretations, new teams that are coming in, and they always try to give us something new to the character. Now, with Daredevil specifically, and a lot of you in the hardcore Nerd Vengers community, you'll really appreciate this because we did a deep dive on Daredevil, and we've actually listened to panels where different creative teams are acknowledged, and they talk about what they brought to the table and what they were doing. Okay? So it's pretty cool that this thing that happens in comics. The way I'm approaching Born Again is that this is just the new creative team telling the story of Matt in this time period, which is obviously different. And it's kind of like, oh, bro, the origin story, that run was incredible, and it's going to be really hard to top that, and maybe they won't. But that doesn't mean I don't want to read the new run. Like, does that make sense? I'm still enjoying this run for what it is. And this last thing I want to say, I have this written in my notes, and I really wonder what you guys think of this. But something else became really clear to me as I was watching Born Again last night, and that's that I would literally rather watch a mid to high tier Daredevil show than a masterfully created Miss Marvel show. And I want to kind of repeat that point because I think this is actually something, at least for me, that's important to acknowledge, maybe important for Marvel to understand as well. So what I mean is, like, we're sitting back, we're analyzing this Daredevil show, we're analyzing it against the other show, and of course the other show is a masterpiece, so it's coming up a little short. And maybe even for some people, they think the show is mid-tier I've heard some people say, I don't like visually what's happening. The CGI was wonky, all this, that, second, and the third. I don't know how you feel about it. But the more I thought about it, and especially because I was excited to want to watch the show again and to enjoy it again. And I realized, like, dude, hey, maybe I'm just like an easy mark as like a comic book sweaty that likes the popular comic book characters. But bro, give me a mid to high range Daredevil show over masterfully created B and C tier characters that I don't really care about. Like I don't know that I'm necessarily in it as far as this fandom and my enjoyment of all this stuff for like elevated genre and high art all the time. At some level, you got to admit, I just like Daredevil swinging around, beating the shit out of people, and being sort of brooding in his real world. That's probably a formula that's just going to be appealing to me, and I'm down. Does that make sense? So I don't know that if you would call this necessarily an amendment on my original take of the show or whatnot, but more like, I just want to update you how I'm feeling about it. It was cool to watch the show again. Very, very enjoyable experience. And as a Marvel fan, I'm glad this show is what we're currently going through. Like, this is going to be a good ride. And so I'm excited. And I just kind of wanted to amend my thoughts on Daredevil Born Again as I watched more and as I thought more about it. Certainly interested in what you all think about all of that. So maybe we'll get into that when we get into the Q&A section. All right, now let's get into something else pretty freaking wild here, man. So yesterday we did talk briefly about some of the comments the Russo brothers have made about Doomsday, about Robert Downey Jr. It was fascinating to learn that the story for this thing and Robert Downey Jr. himself coming back as Dr. Doom may well have been years ago in the making. That was wild. Okay, so this is a new piece of information here. I've loved this story. There's a lot of interesting elements to it, but let's just get into it. Joe Russo says Robert Downey Jr. is researching and writing backstory for Dr. Doom role. He is so dialed in. Downey will play the villain in the upcoming 2 Marvel films, Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. Now, I wrote down in my notes here, RDJ is going deep down the Doom hole, and that is exciting to hear. Let's read a little bit more of the article. We'll get the quotes here, and then I'll break down what I think it all means, okay? After over a decade of playing Avengers leader and Marvel protagonist Iron Man, Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. is getting ready to trade in his hero status for a darker venture, playing Fantastic Four villain Dr. Doom, Victor Von Doom, in 2 upcoming Marvel films. You see that, chat? It's Victor Von Doom, not the variant. In a recent interview with Entertainment Tonight, Joe and Anthony Russo, co-directors of the last 2 Avengers movies, were asked how it was to reunite with Downey for Avengers Doomsday and how he's preparing for the role. It's a very intense process developing the character, Joe said. He's so immersed in it. He is so dialed in. He continued, Downey's writing backstory, costume ideas. I think he just loves really rich, 3-dimensional characters, and I think he sees a real opportunity here with that character. My God, that's good to hear. Say it again. He continued, Downey's writing backstory, costume ideas. I think he just really loves rich, 3-dimensional characters, and I think he sees a real opportunity here with that character. In July, Downey surprised the crowd at Comic-Con by taking off his mask on stage to reveal that he would play Dr. Doom. Fans thought Downey's time in the MCU was over after Iron Man's death in 2019's Avengers Endgame. However, Downey addressed the Comic-Con audience saying, new mask, same task. Joe, who was also on stage, added, if we're going to bring Victor Von Doom to the screen, he is one of the more complex characters in all of comics, then we're going to need the greatest actor in the world. Holy. Okay, so pretty cool to hear, but what a lot of people are fixating on is this right here. Downey's writing backstory. It's not even the costume ideas, although I think that's really cool, but this, writing backstory. People are frankly losing their mind. And I've seen a lot of negativity surrounding this idea, with a lot of people sort of posting, something to the degree of Dr. Doom already has a backstory, what's Downey doing, etc., right? So this is kind of a wild idea. So I want to explain what I think is going on here. And also, too, let me just start by saying, Robert Downey Jr., like, I don't know if people just think that he got lucky doing Iron Man. Like it almost feels like people can acknowledge how brilliant the casting was of Iron Man. They can acknowledge that what Downey did was superb, and all the movies and the characters and the chemistry of that was excellent. And yet they can't see how the guy that did that has the process, the talent, and the ability to recreate it and do it with a different character. Like, I think that is maybe one of the main things that, like, I'm kind of getting frustrated with as far as the fandom is, like, guys, do we just think that, like, he just is that good and, like, he's so right for Stark that he just created that all on a whim and didn't really try? Like, no, like, he's an actor. He works on his craft. He's building that. And to feel that that guy is building that with Doom right now, and that he's so immersed, that he's coming up with story ideas and he's building costumes and all that stuff, brilliant. It gets me really excited. Now, more to the point itself, what is this backstory? Why would Doom need a backstory? It's fair to say that Dr. Doom has a backstory in the comics, pretty well established one. There are entire runs focused to explaining the backstory of Doom. However, I will point out that even a great story like Ed Brubaker's Books of Doom is told from the perspective of a Doombot that is potentially crazy. So there's some level of ambiguity even in that story where you could say, like, was that really the backstory of Victor Von Doom? Like, how much of that actually happened? I don't even know that we know that fully. Okay, that's one thing. But more to the point of the story, I think it's really important to remember a character like Thanos, who had a completely different backstory, completely different motivations in comic books, and how Marvel Studios adapted that for the MCU, right? They always do it a little bit differently. Okay, and I kind of have a cool tweet up here that I'll pull up, all right? And I said here in this tweet, kind of responding to this story, because I think it's so cool. I said, I have so many thoughts. Number one, he's likely creating the backstory because the MCU version is always a bit different. Thanos and Mistress Death comes to mind. So, TLDR on that, most of you know what I'm talking about, but in case you don't, in the comic books, Thanos is literally trying to impress a chick. Now, this chick happens to be the embodiment of death in the multiverse. She's a cosmic entity representing death. The Grim Reaper, but she's a sexy lady, essentially. And basically, Thanos is so in love with her that he does everything he does just to try to woo her. He's just trying to get laid. And everything he does is just to get laid. So they changed that in the MCU because they're like, I don't know that that's going to play. He's super nihilistic. This is crazy. So they give him motivation. They sympathize him. They make him into that kind of a character. So at the very least, they're probably doing something similar with Doctor Doom. Okay? Now, my second point here on this tweet is I say his Doom being from a different universe gives him the opportunity to build it close to the comic books. And what I mean by that is, right now, if Doom existed in 616, we would have to go through all sorts of mental gymnastics to explain the timeline, to explain his absence in big stories and events, to explain, like, you would have to explain how Victor Von Doom was created, his origin in 616, and then why he wasn't involved in any goddamn story throughout the first 15 years of this cinematic universe. You'd have to explain that. But because RDJ is likely from a different universe, which, by the way, we're going to talk more about in the spoiler video later today. Oh my God, there's some juicy stuff that Alex Perez said that makes me think my theory about the original version of 616 is correct, but we'll save that for the video. The point is, because we believe Doom is coming from a different universe, that backstory can be completely separate from the 616. So his origin, Downey has the liberty to make it as much like the comic book version as he wants, but he's probably still taking into account certain MCU story beats, which brings me to like my third point here, and then I'll speculate further. Third thing I said here is I believe he is, by building this Doom backstory, also building the true history of the MCU before He Who Remains built the sacred timeline. Now, without going into full details on that, that is something that Alex Perez has sort of recently hinted at, that this does have to do with what He Who Remains did, the sacred timeline, and how this silenced the universe that Doom comes from. Okay, so what Downey is probably doing when they say he's writing backstory is he's coming up with what happened to his actual character to turn him in to this version of Doctor Doom within the MCU, who's not just Doctor Doom fighting against Reed Richards. No, this is Doctor Doom that sees how the multiverse is collapsing. He sees how He Who Remains manipulated everything in the multiversal war. He wants to take the control of every goddamn thing and reshape the multiverse so it's a singular universe, so there's no incursions and that they can all exist, okay? But as a part of him being sympathetic, I think there's more to it. And so what I think Downey is likely doing is he's like thinking in terms of, okay, so here's the comic book backstory. Here's some of the elements that I think are important to bring in to the live action MCU version of this character. Here's what the Russos are cooking with Secret Wars and his motivations and, you know, Kang and He Who Remains. So I want to bring that into it. Oh, here's this other character, Tony Stark, that I played for almost 20 years that was and is potentially connected to Doctor Doom in some interesting ways. So I think he has all of these sort of things in mind, and he's just playing around with how best to do that and how to best show that in the movie. So I think this is so cool. You know, it speaks to just the craft and the craftsmanship that Downey applies to these sort of things. You know, we spoke about this recently too. There was this Vanity Fair article which came out last year, which went over Downey's process. And one of the things we discovered is that Downey will often go off script in a scene when he's shooting, but it's because he needs to keep it organic and alive. So it's not to say that he's writing like dialogue here. I think he's more coming up with ideas, concepts, and things that'll A, inform him as the character, and B, potentially be things that he uses when he goes off script. Like, imagine Downey goes off script in a moment and starts talking about some shit of his past that he made up about Doctor Doom, and we're all just like, God damn, that's tragic as hell, or whatever, right? Like, that's the juice, and I think that that's a part of what he's getting into. So I'm fascinated by this stuff. I also really like that he's building costumes. I mean, we have God Emperor Doctor Doom. We've got Doom himself in the green, which is probably a Doomsday thing. So Doom could be doing all sorts of different outfits, maybe on Battle World, maybe for the Doom bots, maybe for different people within Doom's court or whatever. There's so much room for Downey to influence this and to really just immerse himself in the role of Doom, how Doom is thinking about all these sort of things, and to be a fly on the wall and hear Downey, you know, doing the voice, maybe coming up with some lines, saying some cold ass shit. This is all really, really exciting. But, you know, wanted to kind of go over this, wanted to give you my take on the writing backstory thing, because it blew up and kind of in a negative way, you know, I'll be honest. And a lot of people were like, what do you mean? Like, Doom's got a backstory or whatever. So that's the new information, and that's what I think they're cooking. And I continue to be so excited about this whole process, and really looking forward to Downey doing his thing. Because I think Downey also knows that some people are skeptic of this idea. They don't necessarily love this casting, and I think he has something to prove, which is a great place to be at as a performer. You know, I think part of the reason he was not necessarily motivated to come back as actual Tony was because they kind of did it all, kind of killed it. What more could he bring to it? And how could it actually excite him as a performer? Like, how could it excite you? It's just going to feel derivative and sort of forced, right? Almost no matter what. So the idea of like, oh, let's build this whole new thing that has some kind of weird connection to Tony, which we don't fully understand right now, and to really build the next big iconic thing of Marvel, and to have that guy have that opportunity. He seems to be embracing it, and he seems to be motivated to prove a lot of people wrong and deliver the sauce, baby. And so I think we're getting the sauce, baby. So there you go. Just wanted to touch base on that. Let's pivot now into a little bit of Star Wars news. We're going to be brief on this, but I do want to give some updates as far as what is going on with Star Wars, and then we'll break into Q&A, just see what you guys have to say today. If there's anything else going on out there in the world that I missed, you can bring it up during the Q&A. So first thing I want to talk about is Andor. Let's talk about Andor. Are you excited for Andor, guys? Throw a 1 into the chat if you're excited about Andor. Just curious to see where we're all at with that. They did have a couple of new trailers and some promotion for Andor, and certainly saw a lot of people being excited about it. And so that's cool. So let me just try to explain what's going on with Andor. I got to be honest with you guys. I don't think I'm going to watch this show. Couple of different reasons why. Obviously, I hate Andor. Obviously, I hate Kathleen Kennedy. Obviously, I hate where Star Wars is at. So that's number one. But number two, have you seen the release schedule for this thing? Have you guys seen the release schedule for this show? Let's look this up. I want to bring this up, because I don't know what the hell this is. I've never quite seen anything like this. So you'll get 3 episodes on April 22nd. Okay? Look at this. This is crazy, dude. You'll get 3 episodes April 22nd. Then a week later, 3 more episodes. Then a week later, 3 more episodes. Then a week later, 3 more episodes. So couple of different things about this. That is probably great for fans if you're a fan of the show. Probably really cool. If you're trying to cover the show and make content based around it, this is a nightmare. This is a nightmare, dude. So even if I was earnestly excited for the show and really enjoyed the first season and was looking forward to covering it, this would be a nightmare. Okay? And the thing is, it's a nightmare for a show that frankly might not get a lot of views. So I'm just being honest. Like, the first season of Andor didn't really get a lot of views. It eventually ticked up, and it obviously has its audience, but it's not doing Mandalorian numbers. It's not doing Ahsoka numbers. It's not really making waves out there. So what this release schedule essentially means is you will have to, like, crush your schedule to cover this thing properly, and you probably aren't even going to get a big reward because not a lot of people watch the show. Now, ironically, I almost think, and by the way, how brilliant is Kathleen Kennedy to spend almost $700 million on a show and then basically shove out its second season in a month period? Wow. Unbelievable. So that's pretty wild. So I almost feel like part of this show and why they're releasing it this way is because they legitimately just want to get it over with. They probably don't want months and months of stories of people clowning on the lack of viewership, which was what happened with the first season. And I really feel like they're just trying to shove it out. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe this is because of the structure of the show and they feel this is the best way to release it, and maybe it'll be really cool for people and they'll really enjoy it. But I say all of that to say, guys, I am not covering Andor. I might watch it. I'll probably give it a shot. I don't think I'll really enjoy it, and I'm damn sure not going to watch like 2.5 hours of Andor for 4 weeks in a row. Like, that's just not happening. So probably not going to cover Andor. Just going to be honest. All right. Now, the next thing I want to say about Star Wars, because I do want to try to cover Star Wars, and like I'm trying to be as positive and optimistic as I can, while also authentically feeling like it's pretty much cooked. There's some good stuff happening. Maybe Dave can turn it around, but I think it's pretty cooked. And Kathy seems to be staying around, and so she's going to continue to make sure it's terrible for like 5 years. Okay, but when it comes to Star Wars Celebration, I will be covering Star Wars Celebration. Okay, I'll try to cover it. If there's big announcements or trailers, I'll try to cover it. At the very least, we'll do a big summary stream. Maybe after it's all said and done, we'll do a big stream on Monday covering all the stuff. I have heard there will be a lot of trailers. Basically, Grace Randolph came out and said that there's going to be a lot of trailers at Star Wars Celebration. So that's cool. Here's some of the big panels that were announced, okay? So, Friday, the big panel on the main stage is The Mandalorian and Grogu, the movie. So that's cool. Probably get a trailer for that. Probably get some updates about different characters that are going to show up. And I'm most curious to find out, like, is this worth my time? Like, what is this movie exactly? We'll talk more about that in a second. Then you're going to get on Saturday, Andor, a Star Wars story. Unbelievable. Then another Saturday stream will be Ahsoka. Now, that one I'm very much looking forward to. I'm excited to see what season 2 is going to look like. Maybe a lot of Hayden, maybe some Abeloth. That's the most hyped up thing for me. And then Sunday, we get our first look at Visions Volume 3. So look, I just got to tell you, that feels like weaker panels. I expected more. I actually thought maybe we'd get a big, like, State of the Galaxy or, like, the new, the future of Star Wars or whatever, right? So I don't know. I'm kind of feeling like there's a conflicting thing happening here. You know, Grace says there's going to be all these trailers. But if I look at these panels, I'm like, where? Like I don't know. If you had a, look at the future or look ahead at the next 5 years panel or something like that, like I forget how they word them. But yeah, without a panel like that, I just don't know. But I will be interested to see what is announced, and I'm going to try to cover it the best that I can. Okay, so shifting into one last little piece of the Star Wars story here. Jon Favreau on The Mandalorian Season 4. Yeah, I've already written it. Or rather, I've written it already. Okay, so this is kind of wild to me. Whilst we wait for the release of The Mandalorian and Grogu next May, we are already looking forward to what happens in the Mandoverse, and showrunner Jon Favreau shared in a recent interview that he's already written a 4th season of the show. In a recent interview with the French entertainment news program BFM-TV, Inside, clipped by this guy on X, the Mandalorian creator and showrunner Jon Favreau discussed a 4th season of the show. Season 4? Yeah, I've written it already. We have to know where we are going to tell a fully formed story. So we had mapped it out, Dave Filoni and I, and then slowly you just write each episode. So I was writing it during post-production because all of it had to feel like a continuation and one full story. Favreau also discussed how the duo had account for other projects that would affect the show and vice versa. There.
We have to know where we're going to tell a fully formed story. So we had mapped it out, Dave and I, and then slowly you just write each episode. So I was writing it during post-production, and that, because all of it has to feel like a continuation and one full story. And then he's doing Ahsoka, which I'm producing with him, but he's the writer showrunner on that. And so to understand what's happening on other shows or even Skeleton Crew, all take place in the same Star Wars time period. So there's a lot more things that we have to keep in mind, and stuff that we've built up to from previous seasons of The Mandalorian as well.
So that's pretty interesting, man. I really wonder how you all feel about that. I mean, on the one hand, I'm positive and optimistic on it because I like the Mandalorian show. I thought season 3 was a big step down, but still found a lot of it enjoyable. But the only issue here is that it makes me rethink the movie. It makes me sort of question, like, what is this movie? If this movie is not the story of season 4, which we had heard, like, he had a story for season 4 and potentially, like, that was being reworked into the film. If that's not what it is, what is this? Is this a side story? Is this a side adventure? And I am a little bit worried that this movie, because you sort of wonder what the hell even is this movie? Because at Star Wars Celebration last year, when they announced all the films, or maybe it was 2 years ago at this point, it wasn't on the list. You know, Kathy talked about the Mangold movie. She talked about the Filoni movie. And then they talked about Charmin Obed-Chinoy. Now, they don't even talk about the Charmin Obed-Chinoy thing anymore, which is wild. But then, like 6 months later, we get the announcement of Mandalorian and Grogu, a movie written and directed by Jon Favreau, co-written by Dave Filoni. Well, what the hell? Why wasn't that at Celebration before? Is this a last-minute thing where basically Kathy Kennedy looked around and said, well, I can't really get these movies off the ground. Hey, Johnny Favreau, you make movies and you know how to do that good. So why don't you make a Mandalorian and Grogu movie? And why don't you make it with Dave? And then we can continue the Disney Plus stuff, and then we'll do Dave's movie eventually and all that sort of stuff. And it's funny because a lot of people criticize the RDJ Doctor Doom thing because they claim it's a last-minute pivot and definitely like just some corporate bullcrap, right? But I don't think it is, and I think that's been planned for years. But Mandalorian and Grogu as a movie? I mean, when that story broke, we went over reports that even Lucasfilm insiders were shocked by that announcement, right? So Mandalorian and Grogu is legitimately what people think the RDJ Doctor Doom thing is. Now, here's the thing. It could still be good. John's great. Dave's great. They know the characters well. It could still be good. But I don't know. I'm starting to get this kind of gut feeling just based on a lot of the other things. And then, you know, the leaks about the movie, it's like Jabba's son, Enso. Like, what the fuck are we doing here, bro? Like, this feels like a mid-season episode of the Clone Wars. What the hell? So I'm starting to get a little worried about the show in that regard. And then it's like, okay, so then they're going to cook a 4th season of Mando, and then Ahsoka 2, and then go into the movies and stuff like that. I know there's potential in using streaming and the television format in some sort of combination with the theatrical experience. I completely acknowledge that there's something there. You could make it work. You know, Game of Thrones has explored this idea in the past. Game of Thrones is currently exploring that idea. We've heard rumors of Game of Thrones movies and how that would tie into the shows they're making. Very interesting. Star Wars is about to do something kind of unprecedented with this. Taking a show, doing a theatrical experience, and then going back to the show. Wow. I mean, I don't know. I have all sorts of questions. I just don't know if that's the move. Makes me think maybe the movie's just a filler kind of fluff movie thing. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's fine. Maybe it would be great. Maybe we'll just really enjoy it and get back into the Star Wars vibe. I'm not really sure, but this is quite interesting. Another reason I'm really interested in this is because Warhammer's cooking right now, of course, the next big thing, the thing we're all getting into, and I'm so glad we are. But the Warhammer plan seems to also involve streaming show and movie. And so I'm kind of looking at what they're doing here with Mando and Grogu, and I'm like, how is this going to work? Will the fans accept this? Does the show get a big bump? Does the movie not do well? Like, how does that work? So fascinating rumors, fascinating things being said out there when it comes to Star Wars. But the essential thing that's happening with Star Wars is Andor's right around the corner. Celebration's right around the corner. I will cover Celebration. I will not cover Andor. And then we will obviously cover Ahsoka 2 and Mando. But I am frankly still very frustrated in Star Wars. I can't really commit to much coverage of Star Wars outside of the things that actually genuinely excite me. And we'll keep tabs. I mean, maybe Kathy is actually on the way out. Maybe as soon as that happens, change comes. Maybe not. So those are your Star Wars updates for all you Star Wars fans as far as what the hell I think is going on with that franchise. God bless them, and I don't know. We'll see where it goes from here. With that said, I'd like to get into the Q&A section of today's show. Just went over a bunch of fun news. Maybe have some thoughts, comments, questions, concerns. You can bring those up. I will go over all of the super chats today. I'll go over all the member chats, and I'll hang in the chat for a little bit as well as we just kind of get into whatever you want to talk about. I also want to say to the fine, nice, polite, wonderful people that are listening on the podcast feed, we've had a pretty good show so far. You know, just a nice, fun time going over different topics, giving you different ideas, yapping about nerdy shit. But I'm about to open myself up to the scum and villainy of a live chat on YouTube and Twitch. It's crazy. I don't know what comes over people. They see a live chat, a bunch of people watching a thing, and they have to be ridiculous. But it is what it is. Every day they will test me. Every day they'll push me to the limit. Every day they're going to try to trigger me and crash me out. Let's get into this Q&A and see how they treat us today. Rossi's first in with a unicorn sticker. That's it. It's over. Delete it. Delete the stream. I'm getting out of here. I've had enough. Thank you, though. JJ Lamone says, stream get me through jury duty. Hashtag Unity. Hey, appreciate you, man. Jury duty, huh? Put it on for the whole jury, man. Put it on for the whole jury real quick. I just got something to say. Really guilty. You all know it. Anyway, JJ Lamont, thanks for gifting a membership, man. Rossi, thank you for gifting a membership. That's very generous. Much love. Josh McCampbell says, hopefully Born Again changes the trend and is good all the way through. According to a lot of people who have seen all 9 episodes, it might. Yeah, that's true. That's a very fair point, and I think there are a lot of people super high on the 9 episodes. There are some people not so high on them. I've seen some complaints, but overall, I think you're right. And you know, the thing I was trying to say at the beginning of the show was like, after watching it again, I was like, okay, now they're cooking. It's different. Maybe not. Maybe I just don't like it as much. Like, that's okay. Like, I have a strong connection to that other version of the show. So maybe I just don't like it as much right away, but like there's a lot of good stuff here and I'm excited to see where it goes. The groundwork that is laid between Fisk and Matt, if that's appropriately dealt with throughout the show, then I think it's really good. And if they know that that's the juice and what they have, they should double, triple down on that and continue to do it. So we'll see where we go from here, but we'll do watch parties next week. We're going to do watch parties for the remaining episodes. And, yeah, I think we're going to have a good time watching the show together, man. Good stuff. The Vitamin Dealer with a 10 spot says, do you feel there is a balance to be struck between realism and fantasy / stylization elements in the comic book movie genre? If so, where do you feel the line is? Well, it would depend on the characters and it would depend on the story. So, like, if you're talking about a Thor book, it's much more fantasy. So, you know, you have that, but then you'll have like Punisher books, Hawkeye books, Black Widow books that are a little bit more on the realistic side. I think one of the juices of Marvel is it's a world or a tapestry. Like, you know, a lot of people call Marvel the House of Ideas. And I think some of the juice of Marvel is how all of these characters come together, right? So just the basic Avengers. You know, you've got Thor, who's like a Norse god, speaks like he's in a Shakespearean play or whatever, right? You've got Tony Stark, you know, based a lot off of like Hugh Hefner and like billionaire playboy, but also has this kick-ass suit and you know, fucks shit up, frankly. You have Captain America, a literal World War II or World War I soldier that is, no, he's World War II, and that is lost out of time. And he's just like a basic soldier, right? So you have all of those characters, just those 3 together. What an eclectic bunch. So the balance between them is certainly interesting. It's an interesting part of it. But it kind of depends. It depends on the character. It depends on the story. By the way, Marvel has done big events that sort of evoke a fantasy feeling over all of Marvel. Marvel's also done events that seem to push everything in a more dark, gritty direction. So there are ways to like take tone or genre and apply it over the top of the whole Marvel thing. So like if you think about the King in Black, it's a eldritch horror vibe that's just permeating like the whole thing and everybody's having to deal with it. It's really interesting the way that vibe is just happening and everybody's having to deal with it. The X-Men books, especially the original like Hickman run of like Powers of X, that story's so weird and it's personal but grand. It's complicated. It's, you know, so there's just a lot of ways you can deal with these things within comics, and the live action adaptation. Kaylin J says RDJ could potentially be so good as Doom that we will look back and debate which role did he crush more, Doom or Iron Man. I think that's exactly correct. And I think that's probably something he's looking to do. You know, like he wants to bring it, man. You know, and him being immersed and everything like that. So freaking cool. So very, very happy that that's what's happening. It's good stuff. Good stuff. G-Rev says, if Doom comes from 616, he has been transplanted to another universe, then Tony Doom in the Sacred Timeline is a variant scooped up from elsewhere. Yeah, it could potentially be that. I feel that the 616 has been recreated by He Who Remains. But what that means is there could be a whole version of the timeline that's real, but completely different, that was undone when Kang recreated the timeline, right? So that could make it so they both technically come from 616, and yet they're both distinct individuals, right? I don't know. It's the whole thing's interesting. Meet Norma says, will we get the Spider-Man meme, but with RDJ and Iron Man variant? Will Tom Cruise Iron Man be a part of Doom's evil Avengers? I don't think so. As far as the Tom Cruise Iron Man thing, I haven't heard anything about that, so I don't know that that's going to happen in any way, shape, or form. It's cool, though. It's a cool idea. There were some rumors that it was going to happen, but these were more around the time of a couple of years ago, right? So who knows? Who knows? And I don't think you're going to get the Spider-Man meme, but I do think you're going to get scenes between those two characters. And I think, you know, what's funny about that is, like, Robert could technically do those scenes right now by himself. Because he plays both characters. Interesting, huh? Joshua Campbell Bluegrass says, I think RDJ is going to cook. Me too, brother. Me too. Lady Boner. Wait, what the hell is this? Lady Boner says, if you talked about the 212th already, I don't know what that is. Joshua Campbell says, man, fuck Blandor. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I know there's a lot of people that like it, though. I know there's a lot of people that like it, so I wanted to kind of acknowledge that and, you know, give people my take or whatever. Drunken Viking, thanks for coming back to the Nerd Ventures. Appreciate it. Locationary says, I've missed streams. What is your theory on bringing Foggy back? Do you think he'll be hand-related or something else? So, I don't know. I mean, should I give this away? Here, I'll show you one really interesting thing. I was thinking about putting this in a video. But I'll show you here. Check this out. The address for Nelson, Murdoch, and Page law firm is 468. This is an Easter egg to Daredevil issue 468 called The Secret Life of Foggy Nelson, in which Foggy fakes his own death. Interesting. Yeah, so basically, guys, this is kind of a trope that was used in a lot of early Daredevil stuff. Foggy is basically probably in witness protection. He probably faked his own death. Like, basically, he probably recovered after the bullet in the hospital, but then they faked his death, or he had some plan to, like, fake his death, or he flips on somebody. I don't know. That's probably how they'll explain it. Bianca, thank you for gifting a membership. I appreciate it, Bianca. I hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well out there. Trey Bryant says, the cover of Volume 24 of Dragon Ball Super looks sick, doesn't it? Dude, I love it. Somebody was talking shit on Twitter about it. They were like, no, it's not even that good. No, this shit looks cool, man. Take a peek. Take a peek, chat. Take a peek. Come on. I mean, it's Tortaro's style. It's not, Toriyama. But, dude, I love this. Are you fucking kidding me? Ultra Instinct, Ultra Ego, Beast Gohan, Broly, and Orange Piccolo? GTFO, man. I need it now. I need it now, chat. It's so good. Bianca, thank you again for another gifted membership. Thank you so much. Mad Doggy says, out of all the Hulks, who's your favorite and why? Who's my favorite and why of all the Hulks? I don't know, man. I mean, probably Bruce. Probably just like regular Hulk. Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like other versions of Hulk. I mean, Red Hulk's cool. I like Scar. Scar's cool. Much cooler in the comics. Red She-Hulk's kind of fun. Yeah. But like Bruce is so cool, man. Like especially in the Maestro Hulk is fire. Bruce in the comics is really interesting. So the Immortal Hulk run was wild. That was a really crazy run. And they sort of established some new lore for the Hulk. So apparently, the comic lore is that what the Hulk really is like the embodiment of the rage of the one above all. So like the reason he is potentially limitless in his power is because in some way he's actually tapping in to like the rage of the one above all. Like essentially God. So that's pretty wild. So Bruce is cool. I hope they redeem Bruce. Yeah, a little bit like Spectre, for sure. Rick Jones. Rick Jones is cool. I like Rick Jones. Rick Jones has done a lot of fun stuff. All right, let me pull up Twitch a little bit though. You know, is it still muted? Did Elisa figure it out or no? Let me pull up Twitch a little bit. Oh, looks like it's good. Looks like it's good. You guys weren't even saying. Were you guys lying? Were you lying about this shit? No, we good. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad you're doing good over there, Twitch. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, guys? What else is on your mind, man? Stan Lee's rage? No, not Stan Lee's rage. I don't know that Stan Lee had a lot of rage. He seemed like a pretty happy guy most of the time. Watch the 212th fan film, Josh. Is it Star Wars? I'm good, guys. I think I've seen some clips and some people share it around and whatnot. I'm good. I do not feel the desire to watch a Star Wars any goddamn thing right now. I'm sorry. Like I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Josh really hates Star Wars? No, I'm not vibing on that Star Wars wavelength right now. You know? The Romani thing, like I guess, sure. But I don't really think that that's a really big deal to a lot of different people. If people really feel strongly about it, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, fine. Like, what are we doing here? I'm not really here to argue with it. If you dislike the RDJ casting so much that you can't enjoy it, like that's your prerogative, but it's obviously not where I'm at. So why would I engage with you at that level? You know what I mean? Like, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to get people to like it even though they really don't? That feels weird. I mean, I guess I could defend it in the sense that I think Robert's great. I think he's going to do great. And, yeah, that's about it. You know, I want to watch the comic book movie with the capes. I want to see the one dude that used to be the hero be the villain and be Doctor Doom. I think that's sick. So that's what I'm excited about. Let's see here. Kendall says with a $10 holla, very generous brother, says, with Loki being the MacGuffin, I think teams like the Fantastic Four, the heroes picked from the TVA, will get to Loki after Doom and Wanda get clapped by Doom. After Doom and Wanda get clapped by Doom. I don't understand. But they survive and remember everything on Battleworld. I think with Loki being the government, it seems like Fantastic Four heroes will get to Loki after Doom and want to get clapped. I do not understand what you're saying, bro. Can you explain it a little bit more in regular chat? I mean, I guess what I'll say is this. They get there after Doom? So, but here's the thing. Can the TVA even get to Loki right now? The only person that could get to the Citadel at the end of time was Miss Minutes, right? Now, at one point, we know that Ravonna is there, but then she gets her memory wiped and she goes back to the TVA. Do we ever see Ravonna go to the Citadel at the end of time? I don't think so. I think the only people that go there are Loki and Sylvie. So how are people even able to get to him? Like, how's Doom even going to get there? I don't know. Sylvie can get there? Can she? We haven't seen her return. Didn't RDJ have some creative control on Iron Man 3? Probably, yeah. I'm not really sure. Anthony Carter says, what was that saying? Die or live long enough to be the villain? Yeah. From the Batman stuff. Twitch is always vying for attention and jealous. You know, look, I think the Twitch people like their platform. They like having the stream over there. I totally get it. I've tried to appease that. But I also think sometimes all of you are just a little much with like the questioning and trying to influence the stream. Send me links or get me to read these paragraphs of shit. And it's just like, I can't do all that. Like I can't, the thing is, and I say this with love, I can't compromise the stream or the performance of the entertainment for your like individual desire. And that is just the way it is. Things will never be the same. Like that's just what it is, right? Unfortunately, there's these clowns having meltdowns on X without using their brains. Yeah, but that shit's not even real, dude. Like I promise you, at least half of those accounts are not real. They're not even real people. They're probably just accounts that are mostly run by foreign entities, and they are literally just trying to stir up as much shit as possible. So I wouldn't worry about it too much, man. You know, that's just kind of my opinion. C. Fisher says, I have a feeling that Loki / TVA will not show up or even be mentioned in Doomsday or Secret Wars. Paul, I don't know. I feel like they have to be mentioned, brother. You know, and I feel like Alex saying Loki is the MacGuffin, that I think indicates the TVA involvement. You know, Daniel RPK recently talked about a new agent character that's being added to the Doomsday film. That's apparently very important. So I actually feel like TVA will be there. I will be real, though. I am not that interested in the TVA or any of that stuff. Other than Loki, I am not really interested in the TVA playing a big role here. I don't think Doom needs to, like, go to the TVA and, like, look around and poke around and shit like that. Like, nah, bro. Like, Doom's above that. I don't think he should be running around the TVA, frankly. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I think they have bigger things to do than have Doom walking around the TVA. But we'll see. Joshua Campbell says, Twitch will never be YouTube, though. We rule! Nerd Vengeance for life. I mean, you're not wrong. YouTube's pretty good. Twitch is like whatever. Scott says, I started the TVA run, and it's actually decent. It's definitely connected to the MCU. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's cool. And specifically for a run like that, and for some kind of like interesting side stories, the TVA is interesting. And I like the Loki show. I'm just kind of the mind that, like, I don't need the Loki show and the TVA to be a big part of Doomsday or Secret Wars. I really don't need that. So we'll see. Andre says, hey, Josh, first time comment here. I like your stuff here. Do you have a Discord? By the way, I know you love James Gunn, so why don't you dye your hair white? Much love. Good one, bro. I think the stream will conclude now. I think we've had enough. Don't you agree, Chad? Don't you agree that we've had enough today? I would be fine with the TVA not showing up again, to be honest. Yeah, same. Don't really need it. Don't really care. Like, the other things are just more important. Like, it's so much more important. Where does Doom come from? So much more important. Like, what's Doom trying to do? How does he make Battle World? Like, that shit's crazy. Ross says, you heard about the Kirby Vision documentary dropping? Yeah, and I think it's really cool. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, it's gonna be cool. Do you think Gunn beefs with you because he's jealous of your luscious black hair? No, I just think he's an asshole to everybody, and he just happened to be an asshole to me as well. That's what I think. Doom took celestial armor. Doom has had celestial armor, but I mean, I don't think that's what he's going to do in this. I guess he could. What's Kirby Vision? It's just a documentary. It's supposed to talk about Jack Kirby, creation of Captain America, what he actually did for Marvel, potentially the fallout and some of the stuff with the lawsuits. We'll see. First live stream I've ever seen. Oh, wow. That's crazy. You've never seen a live stream before in your life? Well, the craziest part of live streams is when you say something in chat and then the streamer reads it live and then it's like, we're talking about it now. Damn, isn't that crazy? I'm the agent, Agent Stifler at your service. Okay. Very cool. People whining about RDJ comeback are about to get it taken to school. I think so. Yeah. I think so. But ultimately, you know, look, at some level, is it frustrating for me? Yeah, because I think it's going to be cool and I'm rooting for it. And I have all sorts of reasons why I think it's actually going to be really good. But sometimes when you take a big swing, you know, when you're really going for it, it's okay that people will look at you funny. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay that a lot of people might be like, I don't know about that. That's okay. You know, I think in order to really go big, you have to risk looking silly. So ultimately, you know, all of this conversation and the debate and the different opinions, it's all par for the course. And it's potentially an important part of what is actually going to make it kind of pop off. So I'm okay with it. You know, I'm just kind of like in the Zen sense, like we're just going through it. Like we're just going through a season. And I get really excited anytime I hear a little update. So I'm going to keep covering that. I hope you guys are at least enjoying that. Even if you're skeptic of the Doom casting, I hope you don't mind that, you know, every time something comes out, I want to talk about it and I'm excited. There have been other projects that I'm not excited about that maybe you have been. So maybe the shoe's on the other foot, so to speak. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm just going to do my thing. I think what's going to happen with, Marvel as we get towards Doomsday and as we get towards the summer of this year, I think a lot of fans are at least going to check back in for, you know, Doomsday and then Secret Wars. And it's Marvel's job to get them so invested that they'll come back for the mutant stuff and be very excited for the X-Men stuff. I don't know that there's much saving some of the Phase 4 characters. Like, just is what it is. Sometimes things happen. But I do think the future for Marvel's going to be fine if they can deliver with Avengers and Doom, and then they can deliver some good mutant stuff. I mean, bro, we're off to the races. So, yeah. Finto182 says, did the CGI at the beginning of Daredevil Born Again hurt anyone else's soul or just me? My head was in my hands. I couldn't believe how bad it looked. Yeah, so a lot of people have that opinion. You know, I'm not going to say you're crazy because I've seen a lot of others have that opinion. I didn't mind it as much. I felt it was atmospheric and cool, and I certainly wasn't, like, taken out of it. Like, no. For me, I was like, no, this is the right vibe. But when I watched it again, I was like, okay, I can see where some people think it's wonky. I've heard a theory about this, too, that's kind of interesting. I saw somebody talking about how basically cameras are now getting so good that they're showing us things that normally we wouldn't see. And it feels uncanny because we're not used to seeing it. and it kind of reminds me of animation. So I've explained this to everybody before, but if you just straight up animated frame by frame what human legs look like when a person walks, it looks uncanny and jarring to the human mind. So they actually take frames out in order for, like, basically what happens is the human brain fills in the space a little bit between some of these frames, and that just better than if the human brain is analyzing actual frames. So there's something like to be said for the world we perceive is not the world in 4K at 120 frames a second. Like, it's not exactly what's going on there. And so our perception is heavily influenced by all sorts of things. So taking that back to the Daredevil thing, I've heard some people start to come up with this idea that cameras and the way they can catch light frames, etc., are so much better than they used to be that we're getting these really weird things that feel uncanny to audiences. This could even explain the Superman weird thing with the face and the cross-eyed thing, because remember what Gunn said, right? He was like, it's the lens. And we're like, okay, it still looks whack. So what if it's actually not the CGI? Ironically, it could be the actors and trying to get that to blend with the CGI. I'm not sure. But yeah, I just to go back to it, I wasn't really that bothered by it. The Exodus says, I'm not sure if tying Doom's backstory to He Who Remains and the TVA is the right play. That makes the Disney Plus show feel like homework for normies. Potentially, but I would also argue that Loki is the most popular Marvel show they've done so far. And that, especially when you consider that the second season finale charted like number 3 on Nielsen. Like, that's huge. We didn't really talk about that too much because, like, it was 2 weeks after the fact and it just wasn't that big of a news topic. But, like, dude, make no mistake about it. That was huge. Charting at number 3 on the overall. What? Nuts. So a lot of people know about Loki and the TVA. I think it's actually really smart to do that, and I think it's really cool. But sure, I mean, I could see the fact that they're maybe leaning on Disney Plus concept a little bit too much. But then again, it's like every fucking person on Twitter says finish Kang's story. So, like, how do they even know that? You know, I don't know. Endless Abyss says, Josh, do you think Spider-Man has a slim chance of appearing in Daredevil Born Again? Nope. I've heard they were going to do something on the TV screen in the same way that they did the White Tiger footage in episode 1. I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't think they will. I also heard that Muse might draw Spider-Man in the show. So maybe that's how they do it. But as far as, like, Spider-Man actually showing up, nope. Best we could do is Fisk talking about somebody in a spider costume. Best we could do is a couple Olive Garden breadsticks. You know what I mean? Yeah. Josh, why did you delete your Invincible critique tweet, bro? I just felt like, look, I deleted it because I could see it going a bad way. And maybe instead of just saying, like, Invincible looks terrible, I should just continue to say, I don't like the animation. Like, maybe it's not actually that constructive for me to shitpost on Twitter that Invincible looks terrible and then have it, like, pop off or whatever. So I did tweet that Invincible looks terrible, and I did watch some of the Invincible War, and I think it looks terrible. But I'm still going to go watch the episodes and try to get into it, and we'll see. You know? Like I'm not going to lie, bro. Like, I can't tell if it's just one of those ADHD things where, like, I'm really hung up on this and not a lot of other people seem to care. But I think the show looks bad. I think it looks pretty bad. And to me, it is distractingly bad. But that's all I'll say about it. You know, God bless them. Hope they're doing good. It's worse that they highlighted it in season 2. Yeah. Yeah, it's ADHD, a bad case of it. Roger that, doctor. Roger that, doctor. KK Hammer? Get that KK Hammer out of my face. Daredevil or Spider-Man, better superhero? I think Spider-Man is a better superhero, but I think that's part of what makes Daredevil potentially a more interesting character. Does that make sense? Daredevil's really interesting. And I personally felt, after watching the episodes again, that was on full display with Matt. You know, the conversation when he's talking about grace and being touched by the divine and stuff, I was like, yeah, no, this is really important. So it feels on point in a lot of ways. Feels pretty on point. Do you think Daredevil will get his radar sense this season? What? I mean, he already has it. I don't know what that means. Josh, can't you see KK saying, I've always wanted to work with Henry Cavill? I don't know Henry Cavill, but I'd like to believe that if Henry Cavill ever got in a room with Kathleen Kennedy, that he would do something similar to what John Cena did to Cody Rhodes. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know him like that, but I would assume it would be the hug, the smile, and then some blood. But you know, again, I don't know the guy, so I couldn't answer that. I think people are smoking stuff. Like, what? It looked amazing. I swear these guys are baiting. No, if you watch season 1 and you watch season 3, it's pretty obvious. It looks very, like, the lines are very heavy and the animation is very stiff. It feels like there's a lot of, like, PNG type weird layering, where in season 1, you can tell a lot of that shit was hand-drawn and it was crispy. You know? And look, I really like the story. I think Invincible is telling some really cool story. But I can't help it, man. Every time I see that animation pop up, I'm like, ooh. Ooh. Wait, Dormammu is appearing in Ironheart? We have no idea. That part of the concept art is super unclear, so we really don't know. Maybe. Oh, you're talking about the CGI? Yeah. Yeah, different strokes, different folks. Mephisto? Yeah. Daredevil Kingpin dialogue, top tier. It's incredible. It's so good. I might watch it again. The casting for Bullseye is pretty incredible. Yeah, he's really good. Is Mephisto ever coming? I think so, but I'm not sure. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is happening right now. Mephisto has been a part of a lot of different plans, but it's hard to tell, like, if you're the Russos and you're trying to tell this story, is the Mephisto element really that important? Or are you leaning into some other things? Yeah, no? So, yeah, we'll see. Quite interesting. Interesting stuff happening. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Mad about to crash out in the courtroom during Poindexter's trial was peak. It was good. Yeah, it was really good. Is the Sasha thing still happening? It's hard to say. I haven't heard any updates. We'll find out. Did you hear Eldon is confirmed to be in season 2 in some capacity? Yep. And I think I know what they're doing. And it'll be good to get Foggy back. Just being honest. Like, look, part of it feels cheap. Part of it feels gimmicky. Part of it's like, what the fuck? Why do we have to deal with him being gone for a whole season anyway? But ultimately, bringing him back is the right move. They've done it in comics before. So, yeah, probably a good idea. And I'll enjoy getting back to it, frankly. Wait, he's coming back? Yeah, he's coming back probably, dude. Somehow he returned. Yeah. Last Superman test screening compared it to Wonder Woman 1 and Guardians of the Galaxy. I've seen that report. The problem is I have no idea who this person is. You know, maybe this is a person that's like an established leaker and has a history, but I've never heard of this person before. I've never heard of this account. So everybody's sharing this totally fucking random account that has these details about the Superman screening. And it's like, I'm actually more inclined to believe Jeff Snyder and John Campea. And they're saying actually different things, but I would at least believe them. I know these guys. I know who they know. And I would believe that. Yeah. Bobby Jackson says, sorry you're not liking Invincible animation. I get it. Reminds me of the comics when I didn't like a different artist's take and I would drop the comic. Yeah, unfortunately, because it's a visual medium, that's a pretty big deal. If you're not vibing with an artist, it's really hard to get past it. You know? I can, and I have before with certain stories. So, like, even Captain America Red, White, Black or whatever, you know, that story, I don't love that animation style or the cartoony style. It's like very stylized, very cartoony. I was not down, but the story's good. So I read through it, but ultimately, like, you want the art to match with like the vibe of the book and for you to be excited about it. So yeah, it's just one of those things, man. It's tough. I'm happy Invincible exists. Have we seen it? Is it charting at all? We've had some Nielsen numbers. Has Invincible charted at all? Yeah, bracing tub. I would be pretty upset. It's not charting? That's a shame. I think they're going to give us some badass stuff. Stronger Daredevil or Spider-Man? Oh, Spider-Man. It's not even close. Spider-Man is so much stronger than Daredevil. Spider-Man's real strong. Real strong. You think we'll get some Defenders? Maybe. You never know. Guess we'll find out. What do you think of the art of Doom in the Throne as him as Rabam Allah instead of it being Latveria? Yeah, I think so. I think that is Rabam Allah for sure. Oh, I can't wait, bro. I can't wait to experience that shit with you guys. So good. And then, man, getting in the room together, experiencing Secret Wars, Battle World, God Emperor Doom. Oh, man, it's such a peak moment. You know, I was kind of thinking about this last night, too, because I was kind of thinking about, like, Brad Winderbaum and Kevin Feige and a lot of these guys that have been, you know, making Marvel. And if you think back to when the Hickman stuff was building, I mean, it's peak comic books. Maybe comics have never been better, frankly, than during that 3-year run. And then the Secret Wars thing itself was obviously so big. And at that time, Kevin and them are like cooking Infinity War and Endgame and probably like really enjoying those comics as well, just like we were. And they probably were like, yo, like, this is so good. We have to do this. And so for them to sort of be touched by that same energy and to be planning it a while back when that was happening, it's just a really feel-good thing for me. And I cannot wait. I cannot wait to watch that movie. And we'll watch it with a bunch of nerd vendors. It's going to be crazy. Invince a snooze, says Joshua Campbell Bluegrass. Damn, that's harsh, but probably true. Shockwave Labs, appreciate you, brother, with the 5 spot. Says the animators for Invincible were probably screwed a bit for the budget because they have some big name actors doing voices to characters in Invincible. Yeah. Look, I think Amazon and Skybound or whatever, whoever's involved, you know, I know Kirkman's probably involved a good bit. I think after the delay to season 2 and whatever, I think it was important that they found a studio that could make this fast because they want to do like 8 seasons, and they don't want to have 2 years in between them. So I think they've compromised a little bit to make it fast. And I get that. Maybe it'll eventually grow on me. Maybe it can still be better. Like, one of the things I don't understand is like the difference here between X-Men 97, because X-Men 97 had a really weird baseline, and then people would animate over the top of it. So you can almost see that like X-Men 97 has like a flat base of like 3D characters that are 2D. Some of the scenes aren't great, but then like when it matters, shit kicks up. Like somebody animates over the top, and it's very detailed, hand-drawn, fluid, awesome. So I don't understand why Invincible isn't like doing exactly what they're doing right now, and then bring in some people additionally to punch up certain moments. That, to me, would be what you do. So I'm confused as to why they're not doing that, but what do I know? I don't know the process. I don't know what they're dealing with there. I don't know what they're dealing with there. I don't blame the animators specifically. I just identify the problem as being the animation quality, right? Besides DD, so far, X-Men 97 is my favorite thing in a long time for Marvel. I think it's the best thing they've made in a long time. Yeah. Seeing God Emperor Doom in live action will make me miss seeing live action Bat God Batman even more. True. Maybe someday we'll get there. Maybe James Gunn's going to get there. 5 projects a year, 6-year plan. Don't worry, guys. I think James Gunn's got this, bro. I think James Gunn's got this. C-Dub says with the 5 spot, just went through the RT rankings of every Marvel TV show. What hot garbage that list is. Miss Marvel, number 2 all time. Yeah, but there's all sorts of reasons for that, man. And I think that the system for television is kind of broken with the way they do Rotten Tomatoes stuff. I also think people, most of the time, the press was given only a few episodes, and so the initial scores are really high because the Marvel shows tended to fall apart in like episode 3, 4, 5. So, yeah, it kind of makes sense to me. It's kind of how, like, Last Jedi is like a 92%, and you're like, wait, what? The context is important, you know? Context matters. It's no Chris Claremont. I like Chris Claremont, but even going back and reading some of his older stuff, it's very wordy. It's like, Chris was great at what he does, but I think a lot of his stuff is dated a little bit. Frankly. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ranked higher than Daredevil. What? That ain't right, man. Let's go burn them down, man. Rotten Tomatoes, it ain't right. We can't deal with this shit. Hell nah, fam. Okay, everybody. Hey, I appreciate y'all. We're going to get on out of here. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the support. Again, if you're listening to this on the podcast feed, we really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Went over some cool topics today. Got into some good discussion in the Q&A. We'll be back at it tomorrow. I've got a big spoiler video coming out later today about the leaks, some of the stuff that Alex Perez said, what's going on with Marvel. And I've got a lot of other content that I'm cooking as well. So it's a good time to be a nerd, and it's an incredible time to be a nerd Avenger. God damn it. John Bowe, appreciate the 10 spot. Definitely not mad because it came in last minute right as I was about to sign off. Definitely still appreciate it. $10 is $10. Thank you so much. Says, Born Again is such a jarring difference from the original. I hate it. That horrible CGI swinging. For what? And they threw away Matt's 3-season arc in 15 minutes. In my opinion, feels very Disneyed up to me. Look, appreciate the 10 spot, but I literally disagree with everything you said in there, but it's all good. We can think about these things differently. Thank you for the 10. As I always say, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video. Is everybody gone? Did everybody leave? Leave, 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 leave. Leave, 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 leave. Leave, 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 leave. Leave, 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 leave. Leave, 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 leave. Ah, man, another happy landing, another chill ass stream, man. That was a good one. You know, nothing too crazy, but no crash outs, good vibes. I'm feeling real zen. I'm feeling real chill, and that's good. So basically, y'all need to step it up. Because I'm feeling so damn good, it hardly feels like I kind of streamed it all. You failed. Today I win. Appreciate y'all, though. Thank you for being here. Hope you enjoyed being filled up to the brim with that nerdy news, with that nerdy goodness, man. Appreciate y'all. Videos coming. Streams are coming. You know, in some ways, we're all coming. Remember to open up your third eye and wash out your stinky butt hole. Stinky butt.